Hare Gange Mahadev Sri Shankara Parvati Pati Mahadev Sri Shankara.
Namaste, it's Sahara Rose, and welcome back to the Highest Self podcast, a place where we discuss what makes you your soul's highest evolvement. I hope you are feeling grounded, anchored, centered, and rooted in these uncertain times, in this period where we just don't know what's going to happen with the presidential race. We kind of feel like in this limbo right now, but at the same time, what I'm experiencing in so many of us is a deep act of surrender and a deep act of trust that we have done what we can done. We've voted, we have made our voices heard and known, and now all we can do is trust that things will happen as they are meant to happen. And I am hoping and praying for the highest and soonest possible timeline towards healing for this planet, and know that either way, regardless of who the president is going to be, we will continue making those shifts, and we will continue moving forward, and we will continue advocating for what matters, and we will continue having these discussions and uplifting humanity. And that's always our responsibility. That doesn't just come from a president doing these things for us. It's always going to start with us. So let this be a great reminder for us to reclaim the power that we have as individuals, and know that as important as the president is, what really will impact our lives and the lives of people around us are our daily actions, where we spend our money, where we spend our focus, attention. These are all of the things that actually create our present day reality, create our educational state, etc., and from which we vote. So it's this two-way street. And in this time, I am hoping that you are taking care of yourself. I posted on Instagram and shared out an email on self-care tips during this election stage that we're in right now, or even if you're listening to this later on. And just hope you are taking care of yourself. You are taking time to not be on the news, on social media, reading all of the predictions and this and that, because that could really make us feel anxious and disempowered. And know that you will always be safe and you will always be protected. And when you have this mindset, then you aren't as overwhelmed by all that you can't control, because you know that you will always be safe and protected. So I wanted to preface this conversation with that, because it is, a huge thing on our minds right now, not just in the US, but globally. And I wanted to have this conversation just, because energy moves so quickly, just as soon as the episode comes out. So we had this conversation, the day before this episode is going to be going out. We just had the conversation. Now it's actually past midnight here, but I'm a night owl. I actually like these dark hours. But Manuela is a friend of mine who I actually met through a mutual friend when she told me that she was this incredible intuitive. And I'm always, fascinated by different energy healers, intuitives, practitioners, etc. I hadn't really worked with an intuitive in a while, just because I feel like I kind of just am in the stage now that I intuit for myself, but I was curious to get a session and ended up, hanging out with Manuela like the whole day, talking about so many different things. And she was someone who was just so kind and so willing to listen, and also had such great insight. So I want to have her on the podcast because what she is so great at is really like deciphering and fine-tuning different voices. And I think that a lot of us, especially when we begin the spiritual journey or anywhere on the spiritual journey, we get confused around, is it the voice of my intuition or is it the voice of my ego? Am I seeing this person and I don't like them? Well, is that my intuition telling me to stay away from them? Or is it my ego who's jealous of them? Or is it a projection? Like, how do we know what's like the different textures between these things? And another thing that I think a lot of us get confused about are these signs coming from my ancestors? Are they coming from past lives? Are they coming from my guides? Are they coming from my angels? there's so many different beings and entities and, groups that we connect with. So we could be hard. Is it supposed to be my ancestral lineage? Is it supposed to be a past life thing? Like where's this fear coming from? Who should I be meditating to? Who should I be calling in? You learn about all of these different practices and there's infinite amounts. So it can be confusing to know what to do. And I know for myself, I, have been on the spiritual journey for a decade now, but I have definitely tried many different things and kind of found what has worked for me, what has been tried and true, and those core principles do change with time too. Like for me, it's very Ayurveda, goddesses, embodiment. Whereas like Reiki, for example, I did Reiki training and that just wasn't my modality, So we learn these different things and we are able to see what's really for us. So we really talk about that and understanding how we're all so different as well. Another thing we talk about, this conversation, by the way, is like a deep rabbit hole. Like if you love the Highest Self podcast episodes, like the one with Teal Swan or with Heather, that were just like going into all of the mystical places. This is one of those conversations. But another conversation that I, really think about often is the role of karma and how we can sometimes misuse the word or the concept of karma in a really harmful way, as well as what are our responsibilities here on this planet. How can we be activists and really create a change in this world and hold this idea as well that everything is perfect as it is and there is so much suffering that needs to be changed. And this is like my eternal battle of like grappling between these two. So we really talk about this because she has the activism and spiritual background as well, and how we can find that perfect balance for ourselves between creating positive change and impact and uplifting those who need our help and need voices, and realizing it is our responsibility to take action. That's why we're here, and that's why we have these gifts and this privilege, etc. And we are not personally in charge of saving the world and saving everyone and fixing everyone. And sometimes we can take on identities that come from our childhoods or even past lives ancestors that we have to be the fixer, healer, helper, saver, which I know I definitely had. So how can we have the balance between the two? What does that look like? Well, we really dive into it at the end of this episode. So if you are one of those people who just loves diving deep into all the mystical realms, you're going to love this conversation. So without further ado, let's welcome Manuela to the Highest Self podcast. And before we get started, I have an announcement for you. Are you ready to discover your Dharma, your soul's purpose, the big reason why you are here? Well, if so, then I invite you to pre-order my new book, Discover Your Dharma, a Vedic guide to discovering your purpose. This book has my true story for the very first time of how I began and created this lifestyle where I am being able to be me full time, and the many obstacles and roadblocks I overcame with my family members, with limiting beliefs, doubts, fears, and how I overcame them to really be able to share my gifts with this planet unapologetically. This book has everything you need to know for discovering and also embodying your Dharma, how to take action on it, how to find yourself in the 9 Dharma archetypes, and then create a Dharma blueprint for yourself to put your Dharma into action. I share about everything from what to do if you're confused, if you have a lot of different things you like to do, to what if you aren't sure how to take action, and everything in between. I also have incredible bonuses, including meditations, courses, and gifts available for you when you pre-order the book and submit your receipt at iamsahararose.com/dharma. So if you're interested in diving into the book and learning more, check it out. The link is in the bio, and I also have my Dharma archetype quiz that is now available that will help you understand which of the 9 Dharma archetypes you are, so you can get started in understanding yours. I email you tons of great information from the book so you can begin on your Dharma journey as soon as possible. So head over to iamsahararose.com/dharma. The link is in the show notes, and I'm so excited to share this book with you. Welcome, Manuela, to the Highest Self podcast. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. It's an honor to be here.
So the first question I'd love to ask you is, what makes you your highest self?
I think to me, highest self means our highest potential and our highest ability to be what we come here to be. And it's been a journey to get there, and it continues to do so. But I think for me, opening and really unveiling what I'm here to do and keeping my focused vision, movement, dance, joy, creativity always connects me to my highest self.
100%. I agree with all of those things. Yeah, it's just to live in the flow of creation. I think that's why we're really all here. And I think sometimes we can get so stuck, and we'll talk about that in this episode of like, is this spiritual? Is it not? Am I doing it right? And like that analytical mind. And it's like we're losing the whole point of what spirituality is all about, which is just to connect to our hearts and to embody that ecstatic expression that we are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Creative channels, all of us.
Exactly. So a lot of people listening to this podcast, they are on their spiritual journeys, but they still wouldn't say necessarily they're like having conversations with their spirit guides or like getting messages from their ancestors. Or when someone says, oh, I had a download, they might not be, they're like, I don't know if I am having a download or not. Like, is it my intuition? Is it my ego? Is it my highest self? Is it my past life? Like they're having a hard time knowing what's their intuition and what's not. And for yourself, as an intuitive who's like, so like, you're like, you came in my room, you're like, oh, Stephen obviously sleeps on this side of the bed. Like, how did you know? I don't know. But how, like, can you give us any kind of tangible tools of how can we pick up on something that's really coming from our intuition?
Absolutely. So actually, speaking of creativity, the biggest way you can connect to that intuition, to that highest self, is creativity. We're all different human beings. We're all different everything, so what I tell you is going to be different from what I tell somebody else. For me, my journey has taken me through steps of writing, right? So writing, like one of the biggest tools that I have really tuned into is automatic writing. So I create a space, a sacred space for myself. I light a candle. I stare. I'm not a deep meditator, but when I do tune in, I use tools such as, for example, the candlelight. And I look at the candle for like 10, 15, whatever. Let yourself get lost in that candlelight. And you'll have a conversation and try to keep your mind in blank. By doing that, then grab your pen and paper. Hopefully you'll have it nearby. And then just allow yourself to just write whatever comes. Because that's a way to actually clear your channel for memories and moments and things to just actually come to you. Movement and dance is another way to just actually allow your body to move in whatever way, to not have to move how you were taught, but allowing your fingertip to separate from your wrist, your hand to separate away from your hand, and actually allowing the movement to take you on a journey. Our ancestors and so many cultures use trance music, trance dance, to transcend, to transform, to access to that's beyond the veil. So movement, writing, and that automatic writing would be trance as well. So it's allowing something bigger than yourself to come through you, to actually activate through you and write through you or move through you. If you're a musician, to sing through you, like not to curate what you're going to sing, but just moving through the like different notes and the different, let yourself be. And I think that's the biggest thing that has happened for us as human beings is we as children are some of the most intuitive people I know. Children are completely intuitive. And the minute we get told how to do things is when we start blocking ourselves to actually accessing that connection to the highest self, to the highest. And that is something different for everybody, right? God, Saraswati, Ganesha, all the deities, all the goddesses, all of that. That's really our connection to that highest. And it's beautiful that you started this with that question, because that's our highest self. So connection to ourselves and opening and creating that channel is really just allowing us to wash the blockages and like wash the conditioning that we've been given since children.
Yeah, 100%. So would you recommend practices like having different cards and like guessing what's behind each card and like any practices like that to like try to see the unseen? Do you think that these practices can help us become more intuitive, or do you think intuition just sort of results when you are more creative, meditative, et cetera, in your life?
There's different practices for everyone. So that's a beautiful question as well, because those are tools that support our intuition. I started with the pendulum, actually. I don't know if, the pendulum for me was one of my biggest sensing. And the pendulum is a little bit
can you share how people could use a pendulum?
Of course. So how I started was on a piece of paper, I would put a circle, and then that circle would divide in two. And so one side would be yes, one side would be no. And usually when you first get a pendulum, I kind of speak to it, and I have a conversation with it, and we have a yes for me as a circle going clockwise, and then no is a very clear back and forth no, and so with that pendulum, you really make it yours. So some people might have the yes be the back and forth. Some people might have the no be the circle. It just depends on how you're feeling and how you're intuiting. So intuition for me is really actually trust. It's like trusting the first thing that comes to your mind, So it was a practice for me, again, to really just delve and trust myself to that. For intuition comes with clairvoyance, with sentiavoyance, it comes with all these different things of some of us can hear the spirit, the guide, the whatever you believe in. Some of us can see it. Some of us can feel it. Right. So for me, when I am intuiting and I tune into somebody, it's a very clear movie. It shows me a picture. So you named, Stephen sleeping on that side. To me, it was like I intuited because I could feel his energy, and it was like a picture in my mind. And then it was like, trust that. That was the first thing that came. So I didn't go back and forth of no, but he sleeps on this side. No, it was just that was the image that came, and I trusted that. And again, the pendulum just supports that.
How do we know if it's our intuition or we're making a judgment?
That's a strong one. And that to me, it really is about embodying that intuition. That's really being connected to your body, being connected to what are the signs in your body that decide and tell you what is intuition and what is not. So for me, another body signal is that I get chills. But to get chills,
every time we're talking, you're like, I have chills. Yeah.
Which I have right now, which I know that it is spirit coming through and speaking through me, so it is. Yeah. I have this awareness of my body that I have these signs. So some people their eye blinks, some people they twitch, some people, it's getting to really understand and know the map of your body in a way where it's before you go anywhere else, before you go to anybody else around you, understand yourself and understand how you work. Mm-hmm. Sometimes my mom used to get palpitations, the heart. She would her heart would palpitate when she felt something was true. And that was an exquisite embodiment of knowing how you can trust yourself. It's all about trust.
So have you ever been in a situation that you meet someone and maybe at first you don't like them, or you feel like something's off, or you just don't want to be their friend, and then later you get to know them and you actually really like them? Well, how come our first response was to not like this person if they actually were a good person? And then how do we know whether to trust that first instinct when in the past we may have been wrong about it before?
Right. And that's judgment. Right? That's our first mask. Imagine the first thing that comes to me when you ask me that question is, how many masks are we wearing as human beings? Wow. What a powerful question, because if we were to start taking those masks off, who are we actually seeing? And it all goes back to that first question you asked. It's how do you see yourself in your highest self? It's the amount of masks I've taken to get here to this moment, to this interview is, I can't even name them. It's been mask after mask, trauma, family relationships, our friendships that we surround ourselves with. So what are we actually judging? Are we actually judging the person that's behind the mask, or are we seeing the person with the mask on? A lot of us automatically connect to the person with the mask on. And that's what we are oh, that's an energy. That's a dark energy. We don't even know what that person is going through, right? So I often trust my intuition when I feel something that's heavier. And I often also just stop, pause, and ask myself, okay, What is here? Is that me projecting onto this person something that I'm feeling about them? Or is this something that this person is actually carrying? So I really actually attempt with that to take a minute, take a deep breath. What is it actually happening here for me?
Yeah, I think it's hard because we have trauma bonding, so you might be really, really attracted to, a relationship or even a friendship, but that attraction could be based in the trauma that was there from, your mother or your father or whatever. But then also it could be a repulsion of, maybe you're jealous of that person, and like those are two very different things. So do you have any, like, if someone's just not sure, they're just feeling like a no, or they're feeling like a yes, how can they then take that pause? Like, what could they really do to ask themselves, is this coming from intuition or ego?
Beautiful. Also, yes. For me, it was a big game of projection when I was younger. So I'm going to speak of myself again because we're all very different. And I used to project onto everybody I would meet. It was like, wow, like this person, this, that. And slowly I actually started realizing that everything that I was projecting was my own wounding. The minute that I actually got in touch with my own wounding, I was like, oh, actually, my biggest gift is connecting people. It's like, okay, so if that gift comes from a wound and that fear of, I don't want to connect people because, I'm afraid to be fill in the blank, left out, not loved, whatever that is, And so from that space to understand that wound, it's like, let's look back at that projection. And I'm not sure if that really answers your question, but it's really understanding again what our fears are. So in a journal prompt or in a prompt, I would ask myself, like, what are my fears? What am I actually afraid of? And what am I afraid of getting towards myself? And what am I afraid of doing to others? And just getting really clear of, what is my pain and what is that? And having a conversation with pain, having a conversation with fear, having a conversation with excitement, and actually really getting in touch with all these feelings, because often we will find that projection is actually coming from us. And each person is going to have their own experience, and we might not like that person, and that very well could be. But if you're actually getting that feeling from just seeing the person, my guess is that that's a projection coming from you. Unless you're like really feeling that energy in the room, in which case could be a whole different array of things.
Yeah. So do you think that human design really plays a big role in this? Because in human design, some people are, sacral or splenic. They're supposed to go with their gut. Some people are more of the reflector type, that they're supposed to think about it after 28 days. So do you think that we should all know our human designs first to kind of see how we interact with our intuition?
Absolutely. I feel like one of the first things I do in my sessions is to understand the person as a whole. Human design is one of the biggest, for me, most powerful tools there is. And I got a human design reading a while ago. And to understand myself in a way that I didn't even know things that I got this reading done. And
what's your human design?
I'm a projector.
Yeah, me too.
I'm a 4/6 projector.
Oh my God, me too.
You too?
Yeah. Really? Splenic authority?
Yes.
Me too. We're the exact same.
I am not a splenic authority, but we
okay.
balance each other out. I'm my first, my head, my chakra, and then my third eye. It's the first three that I'm.
It's like, okay, yeah, mine is splenic authority. And Steven, my husband too, he's a splenic authority projector, but he's a 6/2 profile.
Wow.
So yeah, totally. So that makes sense. Do you know briefly about kind of the intuition of each human designs, if you could share?
It's not something I've gone into, but I do know that, for projectors, because I've studied just because of myself, like to understand a little bit, we're not reflectors, but we do support people in looking at themselves, right?
100%.
So we're really not meant to work. If you're a projector out there and you're working, we're really here to play.
I'm doing it damn wrong. I need to invite that part.
You're playing through working.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm obviously we're all working, but we're here to bring joy to the world in some way. And we're really here to reflect, be a mirror to people's experiences. And that's what I know of reflectors. but I haven't really, projectors, but I haven't really studied human design as much.
Yeah. I mean, I know that projectors are supposed to, like go with that gut instinct. And then sometimes after, then they'll start overthinking it and coming up with like, oh, maybe I shouldn't, or maybe this, or maybe that. But it's like, go with that first thing. I know for reflectors, who are about 1% of the population, very, very rare. My brother is one. They're supposed to wait a full lunar cycle, so a full 28 days to make a decision on anything, because they flux so much with the moon's changes, because they're super, super sensitive. And actually the way that society is going is there's going to become more and more reflectors over time. We're actually all moving towards non-energy types. So right now we've kind of had to, in our survival world, like go with the first gut because you needed it for survival. But in this new world that we're paving, you're going to have more time to like feel through it. And then for manifestors, which are about 8% of the population, who are very like, come up with the idea, but also like the energy to go and do it. They're also like, have an idea, do it, and then kind of like disappear, like be on stage and then like drop dead, like, and then come back at it again. So I think they should also go with that first instinct. And generators as well. I know generators, for making a decision, need to be shown options, right? It's not like, what do you want to eat for dinner? It's, do you want Indian or Thai food? Would you rather go here or there? When they have options, then they can feel into what it is that they want, and they can be very body-based and visceral. And most of the population are generators. It's like 70% are either manifesting generators and generators. So most of our systems in our society, and I've been researching a lot with like food, and like a lot of the main diets that we see, keto, paleo, Whole30, it's actually for the generator body. So that's why it doesn't work. So the whole other conversation, but I do think that that human design piece in the conversation of intuition is so important, because it's, again, like you've been saying, we're all so different. So, Manuela's tools are going to be different than your tools. And even our tools change throughout the course of our lives as different, powers come online.
Absolutely. And you've just brought a huge piece of it in as well, which is diet. Mm-hmm. I mean, the less sugar that you can have, the less. I am not one to say cut off sugar from your diet or cut off any sort of, like that's not me. I believe in balance, but I do believe that the less amount of sugar you can have, the more you're creating space for your body to really become aware and in tune and with your intuition. Really,
yeah, because it's all about sensitivity, right? So when you're having all this sugar, you're desensitized. So you need more sugar to feel that same satiation, because it's like man-made, Yeah. So that's why all of these things, and it's like, as you become intuitive, you don't want it as much. And then as you have less of it, you become more intuitive. Same with like alcohol. What about
coffee?
That's what I'm still. Okay, here's my thing with coffee. So I never was a coffee drinker. I really started to drink it during quarantine. But I feel like when I have the coffee, I'm just like, a little like even happier. It's just like this feel good thing. And I'm not like, drinking. I'm drinking 1 cup of it a day. And I've gone do the celery juice, come back, done this, come back. And I don't notice anything like that's more off in my life. So what are your thoughts on this?
Again, balance. I used to drink 5 cups of coffee before quarantine.
Well, that's maybe it's your Colombian ancestors.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. Definitely. I was still intuiting, and I was actually intuiting more than I was after, so I know people that are some of the biggest like connected beings in the middle of the Amazon that are so intuitive, and they're eating, fried food. And so it's for me, that doesn't really balance. And 1 cup of coffee is not going to do anything. You're still super in tune with all the other practices that you're doing. Though I do believe that there is a more clarity, there's more connection to the dream world. There's more, I can't eat too late at night. Forget about dreaming, like I won't dream if I'm eating at 9 o'clock at night. If I stop at 5, or like if my last meal's at 6 or 7, I have the most lucid dreams. So, yeah.
It's also connected. So I want to talk about past lives and ancestors and spirit guides. So I think a lot of people get confused over, if I'm doing this meditation or automatic reading, or if I'm feeling something, is it coming from my intuition? Is it coming from my past life? Is it coming from my spirit guides? Is it coming from my ancestor? Is it coming from my archangel? Where is it coming from? So can you help us kind of decipher this, if it's even possible?
Yes,
Yeah.
of course. Again, this is my motto. We're all different. So this is one way of thinking, and also accepting all sorts of views and points of views out there, because I'm a firm believer that if we actually open ourselves up to everybody's different points of views, we are going to have a book of knowledge, and that's how I learned, actually, is to be open to anything. I had really Catholic teachers, not considering myself Catholic, and I really had really Jewish teachers, and religion is a whole other thing, but so bringing religion a little bit in, not much, but these guides that we have been given growing up in some way. I was raised Roman Catholic, and I quickly found another way, found another avenue, but I was raised with Mary and Jesus, and these are energies that are out there. And I was taught that they were figures and embodied in human form and all of this. So with that, we're also, and it's beautiful that the last few days have been the thinnest veil of the year, and this year in particular felt thinner than ever. I had both of my parents have passed, and I had both of my parents right next to me all the time. And I could tell because of different things that they were pointing out to, again, connected to the intuition. And so for me, there's different layers of energy. There's a very physical, metaphysical, you knock on a table and you feel something. And then there's layer after layer after layer after layer. For me, the world is made up of layers of energy. And so teachers and guides and all of this different energy is actually lives in some of those different layers. And the connection that you have is up to you. So you are basically guiding and steering the wheel on that connection to that guide or that spirit or that ancestor. I often work with people and taking them into meditation to find that connection to their ancestor, to find the connection to their, family lineage. And some of us are guided by family lineages, and some of us are guided by angels and archangels. And, but the name also puts so much weight into the energy, right? So I want to be clear that just because I name it and I say angel doesn't mean that it's an angel. I see it as a winged energy. I see it and I feel it, and I even feel it right now. And I feel like we all have wings. I feel like we all have these beautiful wings, and sometimes I'm actually able to see it. And I know that some people out there are able to see color in wings. So I'm going on a huge road, but just to name that we all have our own way of connecting to this energy. And to me, the biggest thing is to actually close our eyes and really connect to that part of ourselves that feels that energy, And so for me, death and spirits that have passed on just recently is a very actually heavy energy. You can actually put your hand under it and feel weight. There's a weight if you actually close your eyes and feel that around you,
Mm-hmm.
I was once taught by one of my teachers that the planet is actually needing to create doorways of light for this weight to just transcend, because we still have, if you go to nature, for example, and there's been a genocide near it, you feel the weight, as empaths and intuitives, when you enter land and you just feel whoa, I just suddenly feel so tired.
It's souls that aren't able to pass through.
Exactly. And you can feel that. And you're just sometimes you enter a room and I'm whoa, I am so tired. And it's because you're feeling the weight of
Can you feel if someone has died in that house?
Of course. Of course. I mean, yeah, I've done immense work with land. And actually, I believe we all have that responsibility too. My work is not so much with nature, even though I love nature, but my work is with spirits that have passed on, that haven't transcended. As a medium and as, I talk to a lot of, this is my first time actually speaking this publicly, but I talk to spirits and I really allow them. And there's practices for you to help open the gateway and the doorway for them to just transcend. And some of us are really afraid of it, but really there's not much that they can do to you. And a lot of us have that gift.
If someone passed away in a home and you're not aware of it, could that spirit be quote unquote haunting you or tormenting you because it's trying to communicate with someone or it's trying to leave. Maybe it's trying to get some help. And also, what if we feel like maybe some shit went down in our house that we don't know about? Or, that's why I didn't like growing up in Boston, because I could feel just like I even get emotional talking about this, but the homes were like part of the Underground Railroad. And you could see the full Underground Railroad there. And I just could feel like I was once there. So I hate, like, for me, I hate living in a home knowing that like plantation homes, Victorian homes, because I know like slavery happened there. So what can we do if we're kind of feeling like maybe the place we live in has something, negative that has happened there?
Right. And were you close to Salem? Can I ask you that?
Yeah, I would go to Salem like every weekend.
Yeah. So that's like one of the biggest,
but that was like a huge healing for me because I was also,
we were probably
too.
Burned. And I was there as well. I definitely went to do
burned, drowned, all the things. She went down in Salem.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'll say that you're called to those places to heal that, as you've just beautifully like mentioned and weaved, that's a whole other thing. But I also do and teach how to clear your space. Salt is is your best friend. Salt, like I would get the most unrefined salt there is.
Like a pink Himalayan sea salt.
Yes.
That would just be great. Normal sea salt. Both
work, okay. But unrefined, not the ones that like are completely refined and that you put in your food.
Salt lamps.
So, because salt lamps are weaved in with electricity. And the biggest thing is like, if you jump in the ocean, which I'm sure you're doing right now, it's like you feel cleared. So salt actually absorbs energy. Salt absorbs energy. Lemon absorbs energy. So putting lemon in the corners of your house will actually support to absorb this like heaviness of energy.
In India, they use chili peppers.
Chili peppers as well. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Chili peppers, lime, like hanging.
Garlic. Yeah. It's the traditional, garlic and lime, because it just absorbs. These are potent tools that we have right next to us. It's not very expensive. And even if you're moving into a place that you feel that's new and brand new, just putting a lime or that garlic will absorb the energy. And there's a way to measure.
So for things like salt, I remember we were talking about this, but you said that you have to always change the salt.
Yes.
You can't just be like, you put the salt there once. How often, if we're trying to do a clearing, how often should we be changing the salt?
I mean, it depends how heavy you're feeling the energy, right? So to begin with, I would start every 3 days, you change that salt. Mm-hmm. If you're feeling a very heavy energy, if you're, it's like, it feels okay, but I want to get it clear, I would change every week and a half.
And that's the thing with salt lamps too. You're not changing a salt lamp.
No,
you're just holding on to it forever. Yeah. And the thing with crystals as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What is your favorite way to energetically cleanse crystals?
And I just recently did a class and I was explaining, for me, some people charge them with the moon. Some people charge them with the sun. I'm a sun being. So I like to wash them in salt water. I just put them in salt water. Some of them can't be there for too long, but some of them I leave overnight. And then I love putting them out in the sun so that they charge. Not too long because the color washes off, but definitely long enough so that they get a bit of that solar energy.
Does it need, if there is a window in between it, will that block the moonlight or sunlight from helping?
I prefer to do it direct sunlight because it's only just I would leave them maybe 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Otherwise, the actual potency of the crystal starts fading.
And should this be for all of our crystals? Certain types of crystals need to be cleansed more?
Certain. So selenite is self-cleansing usually. That's my favorite because selenite actually supports in cleansing other crystals too. So if you have crystals around selenite, it will absorb that energy. Each crystal is different. Some, they can't really go in water. I wouldn't put rubies, for example, in water at all.
What about tourmaline and these really black, heavy shungite, etc.?
Yeah, so those I would go actually and smudge more than I would put underwater.
Oh, okay.
Right. So first off, certain smudging would be something that's coming to me right now, sweetgrass for some reason. Sweetgrass for tourmaline is really potent because it actually pairs really beautifully. Yeah, that's what's coming to me right now. But sage as well, and really respecting where it comes from and the Native American traditions of sage, trying not to appropriate the sage, but really allowing, and connecting to it as well.
And
as
sage is super easy to grow at home too. So people
Right.
can grow their own wild sage that's like local to them.
Exactly. And you're putting your energy and your love in there, and you can even put crystals around it too. It loves, yeah.
So I think a lot of people they're confused, should I even be connecting with my ancestors if my ancestors maybe weren't the highest vibe people, a lot of our ancestors did really corrupt things. And I think also the fear of I don't know, what if an ancestor shows up and it's not one I want to connect with? So how do we go about connecting with the right ancestors?
That's beautiful. And then also part of me tells me you're part of that lineage as well, right? Mm-hmm. So there's part of you that actually has to forgive and be forgiven by that, because there's a reason why you were born into that lineage. Mm-hmm. And ignoring it is not going to help you. It's actually going to suppress it, which then becomes a dis-ease in your body and your physical sphere and your energy and your aura and your presence.
So you should just be open to connect to any ancestor. Because, I, for example, heard from one of my teachers, Malika, to only connect with the ancestor that has my highest light in mind, to try to she said that you could have some really angry ancestors that just want to come through and wreak havoc. But then I think that can scare people, of oh my gosh, what if I call in the wrong energy?
Right. And I absolutely agree. And I'm also saying totally, if you're working for the light, it is in your highest interest to only connect to beings of light. Do not connect to the ancestors that you're mad at. Mm-hmm. But I am going to say, do not just push them away, because that's part of your work also as a human being, is to really acknowledge light and dark and forgive and do the work. Because if you're just running away from that, when you feel strong enough to do it, I'm not saying go ahead and go and run and, heal the ancestral lineage. Constellation work is fantastic for that. If you need to actually heal something with somebody. Now, if you're in connecting to your intuition, I wouldn't personally even really fully connect to my ancestors. If I'm connecting to my intuition, I would really choose actually more to connect to my guides and my master teachers out in the field, in the,
ancestors are more for healing versus necessarily getting your guidance from.
Yeah, and they actually don't ever leave you, but I never actually call on my ancestors. If I'm doing a healing on somebody else, if I'm facilitating somebody else's healing, I don't ever call my ancestors. They're there, and I know, and I can feel them, but they're not the ones that are doing the work with me. Who's doing the work with me and helping, supporting, opening the channel is more guides, and that's where I call in that angel protector energy as well.
So I want to talk about this concept of who's with you, because I hear people saying, on my right, I have the spirit guide, her name's Ruby. And then on my left, I have this one, and 3 down, there's Crystal. And I'm I don't know who's next to me. How do we know?
Beautiful. Well, we guide you through a meditation to connect to that, because they're there with you. I mean, when I first met you, I was chills everywhere. You are connected by this energy beyond you.
A squad, a dance troupe all around me.
Totally.
We're all crumping.
Yeah, and you can dress them. No, you can name them. The beautiful thing is through the meditation, they even give you a name, right? It's really attuning and clearing your space and just really trying to hear whatever that voice is that's around you. I mean, sometimes we feel heat, right? There's a lot of heat right now around me, a lot, and it's not even that hot outside. So that to me is energy. Right? There's energy around me right now.
So how could we go about trying to understand who are our most, present day guides?
Right. Who are you connected to?
For my guides?
Yeah.
I feel I'm calling upon goddesses, Saraswati, Lakshmi, etc. But in terms of I don't think I see, I don't see them in front of me. It's just more of
And that's part of your design, right? So that's you. You're not a clairvoyant. You're not and you are, because I say that we're all everything, right? You're everything. Right. But
I see more just colors, but I don't see a perfect person in front of me. I feel mine is clairsentient, of just knowing, I just know information and I don't know where I know it from, but I don't have this seeing a crew of people around me in the room. That's just not my gift.
And it's not. And that's
Yeah.
beautiful, because that's what we need to, for me, I am a clairsentient as well. I feel everything. That's like, and I see your aura right now as we're speaking, you know, like I see it, but I don't necessarily. Movies, I've developed a little bit of everything, but again, that is what it is, owning your intuition. You're a
So
clairsentient.
should we try to go about, you know, getting the other types as well, like trying to become more clairvoyant, clairaudient, et cetera? Or do you think just really focus on which one that comes naturally for you? I think mine is actually claircognizant. It's the knowing one. Clairsentient is the body feeling. I have some of that too, but it's the claircognizant that's my strongest. Yeah.
Yes, I feel that for you. I was like, yeah, but you do have clairsentient as well. I think, you know, it's like the doshas. It's like one is more dominant than the other, but you still have all of them.
Exactly. Yeah. So is there like a practice or meditation you recommend for understanding who are your main guides?
So as a knower, it's not about trying to figure out, I want to see them or I want to feel them. Like you might feel them, but you're knowing them, and you know, then that's why I asked you, it's like, who are you connected to? Because you know that you're connected to, and you can call them upon when you feel them. Right?
But I want to see what they're wearing, though.
Well, you can dress them. You can dress them. And the beautiful thing is bring in creativity. Open your channel, let yourself go, grab some pencils and start drawing and let it come through you, because that's your channel.
So I did this automatic writing, and I was, you know, writing with my right hand, the question, my left hand, I was channeling a spirit guide that I was trying to connect to. And then I'm like, what is your name? And I could feel like nothing was coming through. And then I was like, trying to just like, okay, give me each letter one by one. And I could feel I was just making it up. Like I knew I was making it up, and I gave him the name Prabhav, and that just definitely was not his name. So like, Prabhav. Yeah. So what can we do if we're kind of feeling like we're doing this practice, or we're just sort of making it up?
You're forcing that.
Yeah.
Right. You're not. So I even saw it in your body, like how you contracted. You were actually literally, I want its name and it's not coming to me. Like, how do I get it? It's like, my body's completely closed. Deep breaths, open your shoulders up and like be willing to receive. And it's all going to come in in time. It's
to me, I'm like, do that. Why would they even have a name? If they're an eternal soul, why would they have a name?
Exactly.
Like, I feel like sometimes we name things for ourselves. So I feel like I wasn't getting the name because I knew, why would a spirit have a name?
Completely. That's it. We name things. We need to have that shape. We need to see what they're wearing, but they're eternal.
Well, that's the thing too. I wonder, is this just like this humanistic thing that we do, or is it people picking up on different energies? Because I hear people say, oh, I have a spirit guide who's like a 54-year-old like archaeologist, and his name's Todd, and like these very like human things about their spirit guides. So I'm wondering, are they just tapping into a different stream of consciousness that I'm not aware of? Or is it just too hard for us to connect to energy that we need to personify things to be able to connect to them? Just like the goddesses are universal energies personified.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly right. I feel, and I also would say that everybody's connected to, we're all different. We're all differently connected to a different channel. And we are all part of this one, source. We're here on earth, but I do feel like some of my teachers are connected to completely different channels than I have no idea about. Right. I can't feel, I don't sense, I don't really necessarily believe in them, because everything that I believe, I've actually experienced. That's my biggest teaching, is experience and opening myself up to experience. So for them, I respect their channel. I respect what they're getting. And you're absolutely right. They're personifying an energy, right? Whether it's, I'm not an alien person. I don't really, so that's not, I haven't seen it. I don't feel it. Like, I can't personify it.
I don't want to meet them. I'm like, because I have like the negative RH negative blood type, and apparently that's like alien blood. Do you know what it is? And I'm like, don't come for me, all. Stay away. I don't want to see you. Do not make yourself known. There are a lot of people who want disclosure. It ain't me. Whereas like Stephen is like, he's like, if they could take me away on their ship tonight, goodbye. I would go. And he's literally an alien. And some of my friends are very galactic and cosmic. Where I'm like, I feel like I'm a human. Like I'm here to protect Earth. I'm here to like dance and sweat and the dirt and like that. So do you think that is different guides of theirs that are calling out? It's different past lives, just different dharmas? Like what do you think is like making some people really resonate with the galactic, some people really with the human, some people really with the marine? Like, where is that coming from?
Right. And I don't really necessarily feel like I fully have an answer for that, because I still feel like that's part of why we're here, is to kind of understand it. But from my perception and my point of view, yeah, I think like, there are people that are so connected to that alien world. And I'm like, wait, I don't get it. Like, I don't see it. I'm such,
I'm like, there's no waterfall up there. There's no food. Like, they don't dance. Like, why would I? But some people feel like that's my home. Like, I want to go home. They're homesick for this place.
Right. And I'm not judging it at all. And I think I find it beautiful. And I love that we're having this human experience in this planet. Like, and we get to meet and build bridges around it together. Like, I want to learn about your home. I'll teach you about my home. I know I've been a medicine woman. I've also been a soldier. I've killed, I know I've done a few different lifetimes of this, and I'm so connected to earth. Like, that's the trees and the flowers. That's me, so. And then there's the marine ones, the people that are connected to the dolphins
I have
and
a
the
lot
whales.
of that.
That's you. Yeah. So what about, I'm just starting to learn about this. And again, I learned from experience. So it's just because I've met the right teachers, but like Lemuria and, all of that is dolphin land. It's water. It's Hawaii. It's the islands. It's New Zealand. It's Australia. And it's this energy that we are so connected to because we've been there before. Right. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think that that's why, learning about different astrological types too, like my Western astrology type is Capricorn. I have like 7 planets in Capricorn and Western, but that's why I never really believed in astrology, because I never resonated with it. And then I learned about Vedic astrology, which is the most ancient form of astrology, and like really looks at where the planets are in the sky right now based off of the Earth's shift in its axis. And that's not to say Western astrology is not accurate. It has its own more micro view of like our seasons, whereas Vedic astrology is more galactic and cosmic and big picture. So you get kind of different information. What I find is that my Western chart reflects who I am in this Western society. And my Vedic chart is much more of like the truth of who I am. Like in my Vedic chart, my Scorpio is my rising, which makes sense, water. And then I'm a Sag, sun and moon. Are you the same thing? Are we just the same person? But that to me makes so much sense, because I've always been like an adventurer, a traveler. I want to do new things, spontaneous. Like, let's just see where it goes. I'm not like, I don't even know what I'm going to do next week. Like, let alone Q4. I've never been that person. I don't do calendars, and I'm like, why aren't I like that? But I feel like in the Western world, I have to learn to be like that. And that's why it's in my Western chart. So have you seen this too with people's like Western, Vedic, sidereal versus tropical astrology?
Completely. Absolutely. And I'm a big, what I love about this conversation is that we're bringing in so many different pieces, and I believe like you have, like I started so early learning about this, my first teacher came when I was 6 years old, 7, so it's been years of different like astrology and human design and just like learning ourselves. We're layers and layers of information. It just never stops.
Numerology.
Exactly. Deities, Ayurveda, Western, Eastern, it's just fascinating. I mean,
and we all learn just more and more about ourselves, and it's like, I think some people's like dharma in this lifetime is to really take one practice. Like, I'm a Buddhist. That is what I'm here to do. And like other people are here to be like the eclectic witch. That's like a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And I resonate with that. And that's why I love learning about it. But I think then it confuses people at the same time, because they're like, has my whole life been a lie if I'm not my Western chart? Like, that's what my tattoo's about, and it's hard.
Well, you're both. Exactly. I love that what you said, that it's like our physical body shows like you're seeing me as something. And then like, if you look at my soul, you're seeing me as something else. Right. And then I make up this person, this body. So it's like the layers, again, we know we're talking about energetic layers and physical layers, and it's all energy. It's all, and different people are looking at different ways of bringing this forth in various informations and books and knowledge. And ultimately it just comes back to us. And it's like, what do you believe in? What is your belief? What is your connection to spirit or your ancestor or your guide or your being?
And that's the other thing. It's like your beliefs do shape your reality. That like, let's say, all my friends, family, people who grew up with like Vedic astrology, that they don't even know about Western astrology. That's just who they are. Like they've grown up with that. Whereas people in Western have never even heard about Vedic astrology, maybe until this moment in time. So if you're always told that you're something, oh, you're super, super studious because of your chart, or you're super creative or emotional or whatever it is, then you become that thing because it's told to you over and over again. So it's like our stories, including our astrological signs, are then perpetuating that side of ourselves.
Right. I often ask myself what comes first, reading the horoscope or the actual fact of the horoscope? It's like, what is actually going to come from? That's why I don't fully believe in the word psychic. It's like, for me personally, there's no such thing as really fully telling the future, because it's like so many of my psychic teachers have told me things, and often I wonder, it's like, okay, well, they told me something. Is that what I'm going to live up to, or can I shift it? Like, that's amazing that I can shift it, because you usually can, right? So it's like our belief is everything.
Yeah, I think, just the word psychic feels a bit old paradigm to me, because it makes it seem like there's someone out there that knows the answer and you have no control. and I think also a lot of people have like kind of commodified this word of being a psychic. We've all been approached by like strangers on the street, like, you have a curse on you, pay me this money to remove it. Like, I know I have definitely fallen for it. And then I'm like,
we've probably done it before. So
another smell I have to pay to get removed. And another, okay, you want me to put what in my bra and then throw something under my left shoulder? And it's like all of these things, and you're like, wait, I want to, and that's the thing with me too. It's like, I'm super interested in all the things. And I feel like it can be a slippery slope of giving up your power to like the crystals or the salt or the something to like do the healing. Oh my God, I need to sage. I need to this, I need to that. And it's like, for me, maybe it's the Western Capricorn, but like, I see these as like beautiful tools, but not like Bible to live by, because then it just becomes another doctrine, another dogma.
Absolutely. And it's all in you. It's like, what is the power that you're giving that crystal?
Exactly.
What is that power that you're giving those cards? What is your intention? What's your energy? We come back to energy. I feel this whole heat around me. What am I doing with that? Right? Like, how can I? Yeah, I love that.
We'll take a quick break so I can give a shout out to our sponsors. So many of us are really awakening in our spiritual paths and realizing that spirituality is so much more than more information, more manifestation, more materialism, but it really all comes down to embodiment, being in touch with who you are, your truth, your soul's purpose. And we're realizing that so much of spirituality has been so focused on the masculine, how to disconnect, how to be still, how to be nothing. But really what the feminine wants is to be with everything, with her movements and her expressions and her community and her joy and her purpose. And this is why I created Rose Gold Goddesses. It is the feminine approach to spirituality, where each and every month we are tapping into different goddess archetypes. So this past month, we were working with Goddess Gaia, connecting to our grounded, earthy, anchored energy, especially while the world is so chaotic. The month before that, we were tuning into Goddess Ichel, connecting to our womb wisdom, our menstrual cycles, aligning them with the moon. Before that, we have been connecting with so many goddesses, from Lalita Sundari for sacred sensuality, to Durga for courage, for our dharma, to Kuan Yin for compassion, to Bridget for new beginnings, and so many others. So if you are loving Highest Self Podcast and these types of conversations and episodes that really take spirituality to that deeper, ancient, embodied, earthy, and feminine element, and you're craving to connect with spiritual soul sisters who are also resonating with this more embodied approach to spirituality, then I invite you to join us in Rose Gold Goddesses, the Sacred Sisterhood Collective, all about embodying the goddess within. So besides the monthly goddess circles, we have so many workshops that I've created for you, from my Healing and Embodiment Through Dance course to my Awaken Your Powers Masterclass with Shaman Durek, my 10-day Discover Your Dharma audio course. Starting in January, we're going to be putting Dharma pods together so you can create your own mastermind of people to support you to find your Dharma, and so much more. There is no community community out there like this. If you check out the website and see the transformations women have had from being part of this community, you will be mind blown. So head over to rosegoldgoddesses.com to join the community now, and I'm so excited to meet you inside. Again, that's rosegoldgoddesses.com, and I'll see you in there. It's officially fall, Vata season, and you know what that means. Pumpkin spice everything. So if you're a High Self podcast listener, you probably love pumpkin spice lattes, but you probably don't love the sugar, the dairy, etc. that goes into them. Well, I have something just for you. So I've been talking about Organifi products for a really long time, but this season they have their special pumpkin spice gold recipe, which is insane. It has turmeric, ginger, reishi mushroom, lemon balm, turkey tail mushroom, allspice. It literally tastes like a pumpkin spice latte without the sugar, plus all of the superfoods. So you can find this in all of their other incredible products, including their gold chocolate, their green, their red juice, so many wonderful things to keep your immune system really healthy, strong, and vibrant, and also help you with just the stress levels that we're experiencing right now over on their website at Organifi.com using coupon code Sahara for your 20% discount. That's Organifi, ORGANIFI.com with coupon code Sahara, and you can find that link in the show notes. So I want to talk a little bit about past lives. It's something I love to talk about on the podcast. We've done a couple episodes, about quantum hypnosis healing technique and just my own past life experiences, et cetera. And for me, honestly, the way I have tapped into my past lives most has been through maybe it's because of the claircognizant, but this feeling of I resonate with this time period, or I have this archetype inside of me, or something is drawing me to this culture or language or persona. What has your past life remembrance experience been like?
To tell you a story, because I didn't believe in this. I was like, oh, right. Like, really? Past life?
Because it totally goes
against,
Christianity. There's
Completely.
No past life in that.
Yeah. And I was, conditioned to think like, no, none of that. Mm-hmm. I was like, no, this doesn't work this way. I was 13. I was in Mexico. I had just met one of my teachers. And it was 90 degrees outside. It was so hot. And I laid down on her table, and suddenly the whole room just goes under -15. It's like -15. And I'm like freezing, shivering. I'm like, what's going on? And then suddenly I start getting flashbacks of like this freezing cold mountain in Russia. I was like, oh my gosh. I was terrified of the cold then. Like, I would escape to whatever tropical paradise I could escape to because I couldn't deal with snow. And through that, I realized like, whoa, I was in Russia and I actually froze to death. And then the minute that she took me through that, it was like, whoa, okay, I actually was able to go into the snow and like play with it and love it. But in that moment, like, that image to me came as an image, and I was able to heal it.
What came through for me when you just said that was that you were a Siberian shaman. Was that in that life?
Absolutely.
Yeah, just picked up on that.
There we go. Look at her intuition.
And I saw you had like this like white furry hood around your face.
Yes. Oh my God. I'm going to show you my journal.
And your lips went blue.
Yeah. I froze to death, and I actually left a baby. 3 years later, I left a baby in that lifetime. 3 years later, I'm on a train to New Mexico in Albuquerque. And this guy is like sitting right in front of me and looks at me straight in the eyes. And we're like connected right away. And I was like, whoa, this is like out of a movie. He looks at me and he's like, we connected. And then he comes and visits me in Mexico a year later. He goes into my teacher's bed, same place. And turns out that he didn't believe in any of this stuff at all either. Closes his eyes, we're all crying. He's my baby in that past life, which in this lifetime, he's Russian. So he's Russian in this life. And then in that lifetime, he was my baby. And he came here. We came together to heal that. And my teacher was my mom in that life. So I go from not believing any of this to experiencing that, to just like going deep into learning it, and just like, wow, like this exists. This actually exists. We come here to this body, and this might be way out there for some people. And then it's also just about experiencing. And that healed my fear of cold. And also I healed my relationship with somebody I left behind. We don't talk anymore, but he came into my life to heal that, and that was that. So it's all about experience and learning and feeling and being like inquisitive, like asking questions. And like, if I'm afraid of heights, what happened to me? I had a huge fear of heights as well, and it was all around me killing myself. I healed that too. It's so fascinating. It's just like, all these fears are not just fears that we're born with just because, like, it's asking questions. Why am I actually afraid of the dark? What is that about? So, yeah.
I love that.
That's such a short, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that almost everyone we meet, we had some sort of past life with. It could be as small as, maybe you were both like soldiers in the same army, or like maybe that was your like long lost lover, but in this lifetime, you're definitely not lovers, And I think that also family members tend to play different roles in different lifetimes, and you kind of travel together in a soul clan. So that same group of, I don't know, let's say it's 50 or so souls, though there's no number on it, will play different roles. That maybe in this life, I'm the mother and you're the father and they're the baby. And then we switch it. And then now we're sisters and that's the grandpa. And like, playing out the karma by being these different roles to each other. So for example, let's say I was your mother and you were my daughter and I was like a cruel mother to you. Well, then maybe in the next lifetime we switch so I can experience that. Then maybe we become sisters, and then maybe we become a dad and father, and like keep on playing these different roles until we're able to see all parts of the lesson and bring about healing.
Absolutely. And remember when we had like families of like 100, right? We've minimized that to 4 people, but we used to be whole community of families, and
we're all related.
Yeah.
Like we all actually, every single person on this planet is related. I think we forget that. And it's like not even that far. Like if you think about, I don't know what was the average amount of children 100 years ago, but I know my grandparents, 8, 10 children, that was normal, So it's like, think maybe it was some families, 20 kids, one person would have. So it's like, just think about that. And that all came from one person, that one lineage. So there's like, it's actually pretty interesting with like presidents of like, they're all related. Have you heard this? Like even like Obama was like related to, I don't want to butcher it. I don't know who, but he was related to like some like JFK or something, I want to say. Like they're all related. And there's probably some weird Illuminati thing happening with that as well, but it just also shows how we're all interconnected.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, don't even get me started on, absolutely. I'll keep it at that.
Yeah.
But yes.
So, I've read a lot of books on past lives, and sort of like what I hear is if you have a fear from a past life, if you become aware of that fear now, like it will go away. But I haven't found that to be true. So I'm super afraid of blood. I hate blood. Since I was a kid, I would literally run away when it was time to do a blood test. Like I would like get in the elevator and press all the buttons and escape. And like to this day, like blood tests for me, I get so queasy. I feel like I'm going to faint. It's like such a big deal. I don't know how I'm ever going to have kids because you have to do so many blood tests all the time. Like even if just thinking about like, particularly for me, it's veins, thinking about veins, I get dizzy. Right. So I know that I've definitely bled out, been stabbed, something related to that in past lives, but even knowing about it, I'm still not healed from it. So what could we do if it's still continuing?
Well, I would definitely suggest a regression. Have you done a regression with that yet?
I've done regressions, but that hasn't
not
come
with
through.
That one.
Yeah.
Okay. And that one's a big one because it stops you from, so what comes to me is to do a regression and go back to the source of that fear, like to go back to that moment that you feel like. And I think that's something that you can even do to yourself. It's like, can you close your eyes and like perhaps take that? Have you tried that either? Like, have you tried to go back to that source of where that moment is coming from?
I feel like I haven't like fully sat in a journey of it, but I feel like, I can name a million things that probably could have happened to me. Like, I'm sure so many, people were beheaded or stabbed or this or that related to blood. So surely that's happened to me too. But no part of me wants to like, go and sit in, I don't know, a ceremony of it and then really be in it. It's just too, too much.
Too. Yeah. So the one thing that stuck to me of everything that you said was the vein part. There's something with the veins, right?
Like so, even you saying the word, I get, even if you say vein, like oh my God, I don't even want to talk about this subject.
We can't talk about it right now.
But it's something with me and veins.
Yeah. So I would actually get curious and ask questions around that part. And I know that you get, I know. That to me is what comes, and that's not killing and stabbing or anything. That's something that happened to you. And I can even tell you what it is. And I'm sure we can talk after as well.
It's like a
about what it actually
mutilation,
is.
torture type of thing that happened to me.
Because the minute it actually has to do with an injection. Okay. Yeah, there we go. So the
injection, though, I definitely don't want any vaccine in me, but it's more like, I don't even want to ruin this podcast of going into all of this, but yeah, it's more just this like weird fear with veins. But I'm sure a lot of people listening, I think like there's a word for this. It's like a very common phobia.
Yeah. Well, and that to me is going back to the source, and we can talk about it after, but like going back to the source and really actually clearing it and becoming aware of it. Mm-hmm. And then from that moment, like really just sitting in ceremony, but in a very like you and it ceremony, just like, you're not going to harm me anymore. Forgiveness. I forgive for whoever did this to me, and I, let it go. And then actually what's beautiful is actually facing that again. And that actually just putting like whatever it is, like even if you have a little cut, it's like, sit with it. What are you afraid of? Nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. Facing it. For me, like jumping after, my fear of jumping out of a plane, bungee jumping, all of that has healed, and like trusting that nothing's going to happen. You are completely guided, supported, and loved. Nothing in this blood is going to hurt you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest fear, like the number one fear, is fear of public speaking. That's like the greatest fear. And it's probably like, people went up there and said something and were mocked, like back in the day, if you were mocked or, turned out of your community, you would die. You needed that community. So I think it's this fear of saying the wrong thing in my community, cutting me out and me not surviving because of that. Fear of heights, like you mentioned, fear of airplanes. For me, fear of driving has come up, fear of losing, because it's like that fear of losing control. What if I faint while driving and I lose control of the car? So yeah, definitely. I think all of them have some sort of past life in it.
I can't tell you enough how many people I've worked with that fear of speaking. I mean, I feel like if all of us were speaking our truth, my God, we'd be in a whole different world.
Yep.
I wish that is the highest vision I have for the world, is if we all could speak our truth and what we actually feel. The amount of people that I've worked with that have been strangled before, unbelievable. Like people actually have felt like the cord and the strangling of it, and like releasing that trauma, letting it go. Now those people are standing up and speaking up. And that's, to me, my biggest joy, is like, go stand up for yourself and for what you have to say, because there's so much in this planet.
Yeah, I think I definitely was hung, because I hate like ropes with knots in them. Like we were looking at different like lanterns, pendants and stuff. And it's like the style right now to have like a rope with a knot on it with a light. And I'm like, that looks like a noose. Like, why would someone want that in their house? Like, I was like so against it. Steven's like, no, it's like cool. It's like BDSM style. I'm like, no.
I just got like ringing in my ears, like, like something say like, woo.
Yeah. But even as a kid, I think as kids, we are so much more in tune. But as a kid, I was obsessed with studying the topic of lynching. Like I would do, whole presentations on how lynching is such a disgusting, part of American history. And, still is happening, unfortunately. So I think that has to do with something in a past life of mine.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. To me, it's one of the topics that I'm most fascinated by.
Yeah.
I think that's really what we come here to do, and in relationship, in community, in ourselves, to really like face those fears. And like, that's where the growth comes. That's where we can really like, what are you afraid of? Are you afraid of other people judging you? Or are you judging other people? Like, let's, it's that back to that projection. And then where does that come from? And what moment in time? Is it this lifetime? Is it a past lifetime? Is it your mom's lifetime? Or is it your dad's lifetime? So it's like really a map of creating a map of how to actually navigate what you're carrying.
So I hear a lot of people say, and granted, I hang out in very, very spiritual groups of people, but a lot of people are like, this is my last lifetime here. I know it's my last lifetime. And part of me is like, it could be, but part of me thinks, well, is that a really egotistical thing to say, to think that you've solved every problem ever, and this lifetime is just the final little thing? It's like, are we really ever on that last lifetime? What are your thoughts on this?
I'm often saying that just because, not because I'm egotistical, but because I'm tired. I'm just like, okay, how many more of these do we have? I'm done. I'm often saying that. And I have been told that by people that read my hand, like all these people but I also know many, many, many people that have decided to come back. Actually, one of my roommates who lives with me, I know that she's decided to come back and she was done and she chose to come back. So I don't necessarily believe that we're done. Right? If we're asked to come back for some reason, I think our spirit, who knows what's on the other side of that? I think that's part of my next iteration of this lifetime for me, is to study what goes after that.
Right. Exactly. We went to this amazing healer in Bali. He only spoke Balinese, but he told me that I was Parvati, goddess Parvati's angel. I was her angel guide. So I decided to come back as a human, but in his view, I haven't been a human before. This is my first time of being a human, which, that's why I don't take what one person says, because I do feel like I was a human, because I do feel those past life memories, but maybe my most recent one was being the angel. It's really interesting how each person will pick up on different aspects of you. And I have had actually different healers say I think we have this very linear concept of you start off as this very, very infant soul and you keep growing and then you're an old soul and it's done. And it's not really like that, because you could be an angel, come back, experience something really traumatic, but you needed that for this. So it's not really this perfect idea of your life just keeps getting easier the more and more that you grow until you just have the best life ever and manifest everything you want. I think I don't know this, but I'm going to assume that some of the people who are really here to make the biggest impact on humankind have had the most difficult lives.
Absolutely. Oh my, it's chills all over. You're completely right. And my whole philosophy on this, again, hours worth of philosophy on this, because this is another, I'm passionate about the subject as well. Some of my biggest teachers have been people that live in the streets, actually, and I talk to them and to me, they hold something really sacred and they teach me every single day, the unattachment, and yeah, that's a big one. And I fully agree with everything you're saying.
Yeah. And I think, for example, in the Michael teachings, it's the sort of linear way of the soul dies and it's 7 stages and these are the things. And it was helpful for me, definitely. But, one interesting part about it was according to them, the oldest soul often is homeless or, complete, not attached to this world at all, because they've already done it so much. And it's actually the younger, in respective to that, souls that are still in society and creating things, et cetera, because then you reach this point that it's just much more energetic. And I think where we get stuck as humans is we think, oh, then it's better for me to be energetic, or it's better for me to be the aesthetic that drops everything and meditates in the Himalayas, because older must be better than younger. And that's just not true. That's why this chronological age thing isn't really the best way of explaining it, because it's just different soul contracts in this lifetime. And some people like a Marianne Williamson, would we say, oh, she's a younger soul than me, so she's in politics? No, she has such a huge dharma to play in doing that. And that's the avenue that she's called into. Whereas someone who we don't even know their name because they have never seen a computer before, maybe they're the one who's actually on their last lifetime. Who knows?
I often say that. And yeah, who knows? I agree with you. I don't think there's such a thing as linear path. And to me, somebody once told me, I'm trying to really think of who told me, I don't remember, but if the Buddha is enlightened, then why is he still meditating? I don't know if it's a famous quote, but I remember reading that. I'm yeah, what is this? It's there is no such thing. We know we continue on and maybe we come back and maybe we're not done. And talk about karma, if this is your last life, who knows? There's also a huge question around karma, but it's fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, this topic of karma too, this is a whole conversation. I don't even know how long we've been talking for, but one thing that I do want to say about karma is I think that this term is even where we can use it to weaponize. We can use it to oh, well, I have a good karma, so that's why my life is like this. And they must have done something bad in their past life, and that's why they're homeless, or that's why they're experiencing this or that. And what we forget is that if you're here, you have something to learn. You wouldn't be here if you had nothing to learn, and you have a responsibility. And it's like that free will is really where you exercise your spirituality. It's not about, like, I think that, for example, in places like India where the disparity is so, so great, you're in your car and there's just kids banging on your windows because they're hungry, right? Like, it's hard for people to make sense of, why was I born so privileged in this car when that child who maybe has the same hopes, dreams, and ambitions as me is banging on my window hoping to get food for today. So we can use these spiritual concepts like karma to say, oh, well, I must have been better in my past life, so I deserve this and they deserve that. So, good luck. Hopefully in the next lifetime you have a house. Like, I think that's actually the Buddha's criticism of, that's why he actually left, Hinduism and created Buddhism, was that we all do have a responsibility. But I also don't see it in the way of Buddhism, which is very merit, you do good, so it comes back to you. Like, that also feels very transactional to me.
Completely.
So yeah, I'd love your perspective on all this.
I agree. I mean, I think I don't necessarily see karma as that. I don't ever look, and it's a question. I love that you bring it up, because it's a question that I'm often asking every teaching that I'm in, or every teacher that I'm with. It's like, I feel such ache for the world. And how do I show up in the best way that I can? How do I help everybody? I just want to help everyone. How do I do it? Like, there's so much room for me to go and also. But to me, karma is not, oh, I did it better than you in the last lifetime, so here I am, just showing off my karma. No. It's that transactional piece doesn't feel
right. Like I'm going to help you so I get points, so more things come for me, or it will help me manifest.
No.
But I would say that is better than not helping.
Correct.
If the only reason why you're helping is to help yourself, it's better than not helping. But you should just want to do it for the sake of doing it without it being an exchange.
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes hand in hand with your last lifetime or not last lifetime. Ultimately we just don't, and we go by what we feel, what we see, what we perceive. But ultimately this is what this journey is all about, right? Just what is it really, and I love hearing everybody's perspectives on it and journeys and what they feel and what they see. And I don't think there's actually a right way of doing things. There's so many ways. And
I think different approaches, different teachers will suit you at different points of your life. And then that will not be fulfilling. You will move past it. Abraham Hicks, it's very focus on feeling good. If you focus on feeling good, you'll get what you want. So I would say that for where the average, person is in America, let's just say, I don't know universally, if they can just focus on feeling good, then they will probably step away from things that are self-harming, right? So that's putting them on a right track. But then you get past that and you realize it's not just about me feeling good so I can get what I want. There's a bit of an emptiness in that, and then we move past that and we understand what law of attraction really is about. And it's not just about manifest abundance and these key buzzy words. It's about, what does manifestation even mean? It's to create an idea into reality. I think what I see happen sometimes with, and you're also spiritual and an activist like myself, but what I see happen is people can lose their sense of activism when they become spiritual, because they have this sense of, well, if I figured it out, you can figure it out too. And I'm not here to hold your hand. So I'm going to, send you love and light and hope you figure it out. I'm even seeing, with this election that just happened, who the president is not going to be the defining factor and change in your life. You ultimately have control over your decisions, et cetera. But there are fundamental human rights, such as reproductive rights, such as gay people being allowed to adopt and get married and have legal protections, such as immigrants entering this country, that even if it's not your problem right now, it's still someone's problem. And what I see is a lot of times spiritual people are oh, I don't care because I'm over here in like Maui living my best life and I don't have to worry about that. So it's interesting because becoming more spiritual in a way should make you care more, but what I'm seeing more, it actually makes people care less. So what are your thoughts on this?
Again, my whole layer philosophy, right? So different layers of spirituality. And I so appreciate those people that have reached the level where it's like all divine unicorns and rainbows and magic and fluff. That's a level of spirituality that I don't necessarily fully connect to, because I think like feet on the ground, feet on the earth, like we are here as we are here to help each other elevate. Another philosophy of mine is like, either we're all in it or none of us are in it. You know, like my neighbor is just as important. The person who's cleaning the toilet is just as important in the airport. Like I tend to look at the person in the eyes and say, hey, like I'm with you, you know? And so I think spirituality goes hand in hand with activism. I think one of my teachers, whose name is Melissa Michaels, she taught me, like activism, like creativity. It's activism, creativity, healing, and education. They're all one. You play the role of the activist and the healer and the creative and the educator all as one. You are marrying those. And so I don't necessarily see the healer as separate from the activist, or the activist as separate from the educator, or the educator as separate from the artist. Like, all of these are similar and they go hand in hand. And we actually do this program in the summers and we dance it out. We actually move through each one. And the healer cannot be a healer without the activism, because, and the activist cannot be a healer without the artist. Like we are all one, like literally all one of all of it. We have to marry the activism. Yeah. And then again, I appreciate people that really feel like there's an elevation so high that we don't have to look at that negative piece of it, because without, like, if we're looking at it as a perfect world, well, that's great. And yet I know that, in Colombia right now, there's millions of people dying of hunger. So I am looking at it as a perfect world, and I am looking at ways that I can use my platform to also elevate and support my fellow Colombians who are dying of hunger, and like how to bridge that which is here and there. Right. And so I'm not judging people for having this perfect life and living in Maui and, Mexico, and like kumbaya, everything's perfect. That's beautiful that they choose to have that lifestyle. And also, that is not my personal belief. I do feel that I'm here to elevate and activate. And that probably goes back to our 4 6s, because we're humanitarians. As much as we are spiritual and connected to that, like that goes back to human design. We come here to help elevate humanity in some regard.
Yeah. For me, that's what I had struggled with. And that's why I left Bali. I was like, I feel like here it's just a bunch of mental masturbation. It's just like, I'm going to do my ecstatic dance and drink my green juice and then like go in a cuddle puddle and then sing a kirtan and then this and that and that. And then it's like, it just never ends. Like they've just been doing that for like 10 years. And it's like, wait, this is supposed to fuel you up so you can be of service to humanity and like bring that to the places where it is not. Like, it's amazing. I love doing all those things too. But if it's all you do, then it actually even like loses its essence if your whole day and your whole life. But their perspective was, oh, you have this like sense of, responsibility, and that's just an illusion in your mind. You're only responsible for yourself. Everyone could get to Bali or wherever they needed to if they wanted to and create their own reality. So I have chosen to create this. They can create it for themselves. And I see that perspective too of like, how much one can. And sometimes, like, I know in a past life of mine, I was at the fall of Lemuria and I knew that it was sinking. And I was like, telling this other girl, we need to help the people. We need to help the people. We need to let them know. We need to save them. And she was like, we can't save them. I'm leaving to Atlantis. And I was like, I am not leaving. And I drowned in that lifetime trying to save the people. So I understand that perspective of like, you can't sacrifice yourself to help everyone else, but I also can't be 100% of the, hey, beggar, you too can go to Bali and drink green juice and live like me, like that's just so like unrealistic because even an island like Bali, it can't hold everyone, and it's not, and none of these places are perfect, like the Tulums and Balis and et cetera of the world, there's so much stuff happening behind the scenes too, that we're kind of like trying to create this utopian society that doesn't really exist. I think it's a stage in our healing, like a stage in our healing that we need to like get away from the world, get away from our triggers, get away from all of the things and like be in this incubator where we're like living and we're around people who get it, et cetera. But I don't think that's why any of us were born to just be in it. But that could be my like humanitarian mind talking too. And I'll recognize that. But I know for myself, I wouldn't be fulfilled not being able to, help the world in some sort of way.
Absolutely. And I love that you're saying that as well, because I had my moment of escape. Absolutely, I did. Like I had to go through a deep healing in order to help and support other people and facilitate other people's healing. And I had my moment of green juice, and I have my moments of dance, and I have my moments of Tulum. And well, actually, I haven't been to the new Tulum, but so I appreciate that. But I know that for me, what you're saying is absolutely right. Thanks to those recharging moments, I'm able to give with a full cup, right? And I have that privilege, but I often always come back to giving, like always. And if I'm not giving, then I'm not feeling accomplished. Like my sense of purpose in this life, if I'm not giving, like I don't feel like I'm really here to doing what I come here to do. So that purpose for me is really tied from that piece of that and recharging and coming back, the balance, right?
And I do think that it is universal. I genuinely believe we are all here to be of service, and being of service can be through our highest joy. It doesn't have to be the sacrifice. And I think what, people like us who tend to be like activist humanitarian, I know for myself, carried the story of I need to sacrifice myself to be of service. So it's like, how can we have both? They might be simultaneous. They may be different phases of our lives, but seeing the people I know who are still in Bali, like 7 years later, are they truly happy? I wouldn't say so. I can't speak for all, but I'm speaking to the ones I know. It feels like there's still this void, because when you're only living for yourself, there will always be this void, because that's not why we're here. We're interconnected, and we're all here to hold each other's hands and raise each other up. That I think that eventually all spiritual journeys will just bring us to the same exact realization, and then anything else will just not be enough.
We're most spiritual when we're going through chaos. That to me is like my, and that's a limiting belief as well, as, my roommates would say here, but chaos to me, like that Durga Kali is like, yes, wake up. What just happened in the world the last year? Chaos, right? So,
well, I think what happens with chaos is it pushes you. You have no choice to, oh shit, it's happening. I need to slow down and breathe because I can feel it. Whereas, a lot of times people are like, I want to meditate by the waterfall with the perfect music and this and that, but it's not preparing you for real life, because when you really need those tools, it's not in that perfect environment. It's in the chaos.
Absolutely. And I really stepped in this path when I realized one, I didn't have to wear all white clothes. I wear white clothes to work, but that's it. I still wear my earrings, and I still like my, my beautiful things, and I enjoy the beauty in the world. And also when I realized that I didn't have to go up into the Himalayas and meditate for the rest of my life, the work is actually in the world. The work is where you show up. The work is where the people are. I often call New York and LA my gold mines of work, because this is where it is at. People often are afraid. Often I would get the question, why, how do you work in New York? You're such an empath. And it's I love it. That's where it is. That is where my work. And, so I respect people that choose to live in islands, and that's not where I belong. I belong in the chaos and the full complexity of the human experience.
Yeah. I think it's so important to know yourself. Yeah. Shaman Dirk, who was on the podcast, said he's the same thing. He's like, I need to be in the eye of the storm. He's like, cause I was like, what's going to happen to LA, this and that. Whereas for me, I feel like I need to be a little bit removed out of it by the water, by the sea. And that's how I recharge. But also I want to be in the community. That to me is super important that like, you know, a lot of people are moving to Costa Rica right now. That, at least at this stage of my life, is not the place for me. It's too far removed and rural. I need to be like, we're hopping on a podcast right now, and like be able to do that, you know? So it really takes knowing yourself and then honoring what that is. And, you know, for some people, I have some friends who are like complete, like light energy beings that they just need to be holding this grid, and like that's their work. Like they are like very, very light workery. And then I have some who are like social workers, like in the conversation. It's all needed and it's all so beautiful.
Yeah. And chills, like to really acknowledge each other in that highest self. Right. So it's like, there are the light beings, the fairies, the like nature wonders of the world. I'm not that. I'm like the sword. I'm probably like Shaman Durek, like, you know, we're out there in the field with our swords, like, oh, BS, bye, you know? And then, and you are like reaching New York and LA through this podcast. So you don't have to be in the eye of the storm either, but you're utilizing tools, and you know the tools that are there in order to give to that eye of the storm. And that's where I think I often say that there's three types of people. Like there's like the people that are protectors, the people that are warriors, and the people that are like in between, that are supporting both, that are like holding the space, right? And no one is better than the other one. I think we're all just coming here with different roles and different ways of being.
Yeah. In my book, Discover Your Dharma, I write about like thinking of the way of the village. Like in the village, there were the weavers, and there were the farmers and the hunters and the medicine woman. And like everyone had their own role. And you would not want the hunters to be taking care of the kids. You would not want the weavers to be making your medicine. Like you want people to be in their zone of genius. And I think like we're finally now, and honestly, thanks to the internet, finding our way back to that, finding our way back to, you know, like even 20 years ago, could I be a professional? Like I just talk about spirituality, you know, like I would probably have to be the psychic on the street. I feel something on you. You need an egg in your bra, you know? But it's so amazing that we've chosen to reincarnate at this time and with these tools. And if you're someone who's listening to this podcast, you are fully aware of these tools, because there are a lot of people live right now who don't know what a podcast is, you know? So it's like, if you're listening to this and you're aware of it, I guarantee your dharma is in some way to either gather information from these sources or put information on these sources, because we're actually creating the way of the mystery schools again, that we could sit and have conversations on like the meaning of life and truth and liberty and spirit. And it's like, in a way, I think we're going to look back and see these as the golden ages. As much as people like to hate on 2020, I think that this is truly like the fact that like words like shamanic or divine feminine healing or light worker, et cetera, are like almost common vocabulary. The fact that even Forever 21 wants to sell some fucking crystals, you know, even though they're fake, but the fact that even they are realizing that so many people want that, like this is a huge, huge shift that we're in. And I think that when we zoom out and we have conversations like this, we realize like, wow, we're going to look back on these times. It's like, you know, I love looking back at the early 2000s and 90s, because I'm like, my Neopets and like all the things of then, but you didn't realize it when you were in it, like what a pivotal time that was, even though it was pivotal in a different way. But I think we're going to look back to this. First cell phones, first this. And it's like, now it's like, it's not about knowing that these things exist. Now it's what are we going to do with them? And that's what's super exciting.
Yes. I mean, what a time to really, like, we went from going way out, expand, to like contract and in, like way to look in. And that's where we started finding ourselves at the highest level, potentially. A lot of us still had a lot of wounding that we needed to look at, you know, and being enclosed and at home was like a way of like looking at all of our like, you know, shadow and wound and fear of like not being enough, not having enough, not like all of these things. And what a time to really, it's a renaissance. It's like, you are okay, you are safe, no matter what's happening out there. We've got a community, planet Earth, that is willing to step up.
I have spoken to so many people saying that my dad, my whoever, for the first time is open to, you know, even my parents, I told you they did family constellation. Right. Honestly, had this quarantine not happened, maybe they wouldn't have been open to that. So many people for the first time questioning their career, their relationships, their home, their everything. If it wasn't for this quarantine, that wouldn't have happened. Now, the steps you might have to take with that realization may be very difficult. You know, they may be painful. There may be a breakup or a career change or move or something like that. But awareness is always going to bring you closer to truth. So it's always worth it overall.
Yes. Absolutely. Yes.
Yay. So many rabbit holes, but I love conversations like this because it is important to just even like with podcasting, you know, it's not about a question and an answer. You don't have the answer. I don't have the fucking answer. Like we're learning, like we're having this conversation for us.
Totally. I think we just went in a cycle. Also, like we started in one place, we went all as the rabbit hole. Yeah. But like there was answers. I can't wait to hear this again. And just like, I think there were some answers.
Yeah. And it's like the answer is that like nothing, like, I think that's what we're learning as a collective. It's like embrace duality, embrace that I could say two completely contradictory things that they could both be true in different ways. So it's like embrace it all, question deeper, trust your intuition, and know that overall, even though things are really uncertain right now, we're going towards, I would say, the most certain path we've ever been on.
Absolutely. Ask for help, support another, you know, we're here together in this journey. Some of us feel like we have it figured out some days yes, some days no. You know, it's a journey. Life is a journey, and may we continue to expand and grow in the best way possible.
Yeah. So any final tips for listeners right now, just to navigate the uncertainty of this time?
Yeah, I think like right now, though we want to be plugged in and connected to news sources and all of these things. And, you know, it's a privilege not to be connected to these things, but also just to like really go in a little bit. Like, I know that we want to be looking at the news and seeing who's going to do that and this and all of this, just connecting to our breath and closing our eyes. And if we don't feel like meditating and if we don't feel like doing anything, then that's fine too. And just acknowledging and accessing your own power, your own innate like fire that's in there, and knowing that whatever the result of this time is, like this is part of why you came here to be. Like this is why you are here in this moment. We are literally in the birth, the threshold, the transformation of this time. And as you're saying, the Renaissance, enjoy it. As hard as that sounds, I know that it's rougher for some than others, and we're never going to live through this moment again. So what you're doing right now, whether it's watching CNN, whether it's opening your journal, whether it's painting a huge canvas, whether it's going for a walk, whatever this moment is for you is transformational. And that's what every single moment of our life is. So just really reconnecting to ourselves, taking a deep breath, closing our eyes, and being there for one another is really what this time is about. And I hope that, you know, we can really move forward in this earth and keep opening and keep awakening.
Yes, sister. Yes. So where can listeners connect with you and dive in deeper with your work?
My website is www.manuela, Manuela, Welton, Welton.com. And then my Instagram as well, same name, Manuela Welton. And yeah, I look forward to connecting further.
Yay. And I'll have those linked in the show notes. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom, knowledge, and channeling with us.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me. What an honor. What a beautiful, beautiful conversation. Highlight of my everything.
Yes. Thank you. How incredible was that conversation? I love, you know, going kind of off the beaten path and diving into these different, you know, areas of our minds, these different things that we think about, that we daydream about, these conversations that we really don't get to have with people in our daily lives. And I love to create Highest Self Podcast as a place that that conversation gets to be heard and explored to help you also enter that conversation with yourself, with your friends, with your family, etc. So maybe if you're wanting to have conversations like this with friends, send them over this episode, ask them what they think about it, share it with your Instagram community, share it on your stories, create a conversation this way. I think so many of us are awakening, but with that awakening, like we're just taught, okay, you're asleep and you awaken and that's it. And there's just so many subtleties and so many questions and so many avenues and so many stages and levels and layers. And it's so important to be able to really dissect them all and move through them so we could find clarity. So be sure to share this episode with your friends, with your community, tag me in it so I can reshare you and also send you my free ebook. So if you loved this episode, I would love to send you a free gift, which is the first half of my unreleased book, Eat Right for Your Mind Body Type. This is a different book than Eat Feel Fresh, my first book ever, which is not released anywhere. And I am gifting it exclusively to those who leave a review of my podcast in the iTunes store. So all you got to do is head over to iTunes where you may be listening to this podcast and leave a review. Take a screenshot that you've left it and email it over to me at Sahara@eatfeelfresh.com. Again, that's Sahara, Sahara, at eatfeelfresh.com. And I will send you back the first half of my unreleased book, Eat Right for Your Mind Body Type, which goes all into Ayurveda, doshas, plant-based nutrition, body types, all of the things in a really fun and engaging way. So this is my gift to you for free for supporting the podcast. Every single review I personally read. It really helps the podcast be listened to by more people so we can raise the vibration of the planet together. And I am so grateful to have you on this journey. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode. Namaste.